honored and delighted that you're here to join us for our show. Again, the recording just started, so I'll repeat the date. It is March the 11th, 2026. And we are going to continue with the reading of Jeannie's book. And yesterday, Jeannie and I started a conversation about the clarity with which she brings forward the abuse she experienced as a woman, and sadly how common that is in our culture. And you can hear the baby in the background, perhaps she's putting him down, so that's why I'm starting the show up. And so what we decided to do, Terry Bowling, which everybody knows, he's been on the show and in the workshops, been around the work for about 3 decades now. And he's started a Substack newsletter, which we've shared with you a couple of times. But there was a particularly powerful piece that he shared a couple of days ago about his experience as a young boy. You know, Jeannie shared this young girl's experience. And so we thought it was appropriate to just bring forward a perspective that, you know, oftentimes we as men are taught to be tough and strong and we don't feel anything. Well, that's because oftentimes there's so much trauma that we can't stand the idea of having to feel or deal with it. And so I thought I would invite Terry to share this story that he wrote that's really beautifully written, Terry. When it hit me, I had some tears come up, and I actually immediately got on the phone to call you and just to offer support for that kind of memory surfacing. And I know we're holding the space for you, but I'll let Terry go ahead and explain. And then just, Terry, if you would just read through it and share what your memory is of one of your childhood experiences.
Okay, thank you, Michael. I really appreciate the opportunity here. And of course, we have been connected now for, like you said, going on 3 decades, and it's been a continuous thread through my life, only secondary to the AA program, which gave me the ability to continue living so that I could meet you and get into your work and carry on from there. I started writing Why Again back when I was at Heartland. It was around 2009 or 2010, somewhere around that area. And so it's been going on for quite a while now, and I'd put it away and bring it out, put it away and bring it out. So I made a commitment to get the book wrapped up and out this year. And
yay!
But yeah, part of that was coming together and creating a 52 weeks of Why Again, which is kind of a play on your book, of course, and leading into what happened with me and why has this happened to me again were been so predominant and prevalent in my life. And the subtitle was The Adventures of a Reluctant Recovering Sociopath, which I was given that title in my first detox and rehab back when I was like 24 years old, right around 24. That was sometime back in 1981 or 82, somewhere around there. And this is week 12 that you're referring to, and the title is Beatings and Banana Pudding. So I'll just go ahead and read that out, and then we'll go from there. How's that sound?
Sounds powerful, and maybe we let people know that Terry has used the Why Is This Happening to Me Again book. He's shared that a couple times on the show as a textbook in his life. I think you said you're on your 14th reading, and it occurred to him to write a book, Why Again? So that's the title of it that Terry's working on coming up with.
Absolutely. And that concept was introduced in the AA book. They plainly stated this is a textbook, and this is not something you're going to read once. It's going to become a reference book if you use it to the best of your advantage and all. And that's the same principle I applied to the Why Again book. And every time I read it, I see something a little differently, and I'm like, wow, was that there before? And I finally kind of figured out, I think maybe it was me that was changing and not the book, because you didn't keep going back and updating and putting out different editions. It's the same edition. So yeah, with each reading, there's been a deeper understanding and a nice reminder, because part of my makeup is to deny and forget and pretend and all that kind of stuff. So my evidentiary device can scramble up data and paint a different picture pretty easily. And it takes consistent work and effort to change that pattern, which is talked about explicitly from your perspective, your work, and on our shows and all. And it's just a great thing. So yeah, that ties it right in.
It does. Thank you for sharing that, Terry. Michael shared your Substack with me earlier today. It's powerful.
Oh.
So it's not just for women. Okay. Does anybody have any questions before I start on the next chapter?
Well, I haven't read this one, this article
Oh,
yet.
go for it.
Okay, let me read through that right quick. So the adventures of a reluctant recovering sociopath, beatings and banana puddings. So root trauma number 3, when love and pain speak the same language. Last week, I told you about Miss Conrad and what I learned in first grade about power and pain. 2 weeks before that, we were on Water Street in 1962. The night the lights went out on whatever version of normal I might have had. 3 root traumas, 3 different classrooms, all teaching the same curriculum. This week we go home. The chair. My mother tied me and my brother to chairs. I want to say that plainly without drama or preamble, because the drama is already in the fact itself. She would tie us to kitchen chairs when she needed us to stay put, when something had gone wrong, or when she'd simply had enough. The rope wasn't brutal. It wasn't about injury. It was about control and making sure we understood who had it. It was a tactic she used when she was the end of her rope, which turned into our rope. I don't remember the first time. That's the thing about early childhood experiences that become normalized. They don't arrive as events. They arrive as weather. You don't remember the first rainstorm. You just know it rains. And some storms are more violent than others. The chair was a known quantity. So was what came before it. The orphanage. She threatened the orphanage. This was her other instrument, not used every time, but present enough that it lived in the air of the house. On the bad days when we pushed past whatever invisible line existed, she would tell us we were headed to the orphanage. I should take you sons of bitches to the orphanage. That was where children who couldn't behave ended up. That's where we were going. Reflecting back, she was out of her mind when those words came. I remember that look in her eyes. The human had left the building. It was a place I came to know very well myself. The sealed off place inside yourself where nothing can reach you. I was learning even then to build that room. I was maybe 5 or 6, small enough that the threat was architecturally enormous. A child has no reason not to believe a parent's threat. The orphanage was real to me. It was weighty. It was where children who weren't good enough ended up. I decided very early that I would not let her see what that threat did to me. If she couldn't see it working, maybe she'd stop using it. You'll recognize the strategy. It's the same one I used with Mrs. Conrad and her paddle. Don't flinch, give nothing away, make yourself unreadable. My brothers were not as quick a study as I was. By 6 years old, I had practiced this enough that it was becoming second nature. The pudding. Here's the thing that made it complicated. The thing that damaged me in ways the beatings alone couldn't have. Even at that age, I understood the strangeness of it, the contradictions stacked up and unresolvable. She also made banana pudding, not store-bought, homemade, one deep Pyrex bowl for each child, made specifically individually with care. She baked the meringue, no artificial whipped topping for us, nothing but the best. She'd put them on the table without explanation, without acknowledgement of what had happened the day before, without apology, without discussion, without any verbal bridge between the punishment and this. Just the pudding and a diverted gaze. The shame, maybe. She couldn't look us in the eyes. That was her language for I'm sorry, or maybe for I love you, or maybe for both at once, fused together in a way she had no other way to express. I don't know. I never knew. We never talked about it. You didn't talk about it. You ate the pudding. There was something terrible in eating it because eating it meant accepting the reset. It meant agreeing without words that yesterday was over and we were starting again. It meant pretending the chair hadn't happened. The orphanage threat hadn't happened. It took effort to hold it down, to push it somewhere deep and unreachable. You ate the pudding and the ledger was cleared until it wasn't. What this teaches a child raised this way learns several things simultaneously. He learns that love and pain come from the same source, that the person who hurts you is also the person who feeds you, that you cannot separate the two because they are not separate. They're the same person on different days, and you never know which version is walking through the door. The child learns that there is no language for hard things. The apology is a bowl of pudding, and reconciliation is eating it in silence. That's what happens between people. That what happens between people is never discussed, processed, or resolved. It is simply replaced by something sweet and then forgotten. The feelings about all this are irrelevant. There is no space for them. You don't ask, why did you tie me to a chair? You don't say, that hurt. You don't name what happened. You eat the pudding and you move on. Most dangerously of all, a child learns that the people who love you are also the people you cannot trust, and that love is always potentially a setup for the next bad thing. That word love has been very difficult for me to come to terms with. My understanding of it has always been distorted, bent into something I couldn't hold without getting cut, even decades later. If you've been following the series from the beginning, you may already see what I see. I was a very good student. I learned every one of these lessons perfectly. The 3 classrooms, Water Street, first grade, home. 3 places where the curriculum was identical, where the lesson was you were on your own, where the education was don't feel it, don't show it, don't trust it, don't need it, and absolutely do not believe it. By the time I was 7 or 8 years old, I had a graduate level education in emotional self-sufficiency and a pre-K education in everything else. I didn't know how to be close to people. I didn't know how to be vulnerable. I didn't know what safe felt like. because I'd never stayed at a place long enough to find out. What I had instead was a very sophisticated threat detection system, a complete inability to let anyone see me flinch. I had a deepening suspicion that the whole game was rigged, and I was the only one who knew it. That's not a monster. That's a child who adapted perfectly to the environment he was given. The tragedy is not that the adaptations were wrong. The tragedy is that they were right and that they didn't stop. My training and practice continued for years. A word about my mother. I want to say something carefully here because it matters. My mother was not a monster either. She was a woman who had been formed by her own classrooms, her own water streets, her own Mrs. Conrads, her own version of the same inheritance. She didn't have language for hard things because no one had given her language for hard things. She made the pudding because the pudding was probably the most articulate thing she knew how to do. She came by the limitation, honestly. She was raised inside a family system of dysfunction so deep it had its own weather. Alcoholism was rampant. She had 9 older brothers, one who didn't survive childhood. Another lost a leg after passing out on a train track one drunken night, the train severing it while it lay across the rail. She had one younger sister, 11 children growing up in a Depression area. She was born in 1930 at the height of it. She spoke of a garden so large it fed the whole family. That sounds almost pastoral until you remember she was the child tending that garden, putting up the harvest. 900 quarts of food one year, she said. Yes, 900 canned and stored for a family who otherwise would go without. She described my grandfather as an alcoholic womanizer. He always had money and a Ford Model A, one of the first in High Point, North Carolina, our hometown. He bought the car and drove his hussies around town, drinking and carrying on while the family made do, my mother would say. My mother moved herself, her sister, and her mother from house to house trying to clear of him, only to have him find their location and come piling back in. An invasion my mother survived over and over again. It was a skill my father, a violent periodic alcoholic himself, would later perfect between his visits to the penitentiary. He cycled between charm and brutality with no warning I could ever detect. Understanding all of that doesn't erase what happened. The chair was still a chair, the threat was still a threat, the damage was still done. The whole of both things at once, what she did and why she might have done it, is part of what recovery eventually asks of you. It took me a very long time to get there. I'm not sure I would have made it without AA, 12 steps, Dr. Ryce's forgiveness work, and focusing. Each of them giving me a different way to hold two true things simultaneously without having to resolve them or collapse one into the other. They can both be true. She loved me and she hurt me. She did her best, and her best wasn't enough. I survived and I was damaged. All of it at the same time. And then I go into next week and what's coming after that. And one little side note I didn't include was that on therapy, one of my early therapists, I think it was number 2 or 3, when I described that background of my mom and all, she's like, "Oh, I understand now why she chose your father. She needed someone evil enough, bad enough, damaged enough to take the place of that whole insanity she grew up in." And that made sense. She needed a big replacement package, and she attracted it, just like we talk about, the law of resonance. So there you go. Thank you for listening. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for sharing that, Terry. And we breathe with you and appreciate the way you're assembling a picture of the healing process that's going to be a unique way of touching the world. And we certainly extend love through you to your whole family. This insanity that's been passed on to most of the planet and is, standing out like a sore thumb in the world yet today in the most public ways. And appreciate your support over the last 3 decades of the work you've done, a couple of years you spent at Heartland, and certainly here to hold the space and support you in taking your particular genetic line in the family and bringing it to healing. It's powerful. And I think this particular piece, the way it struck me is that it really gives men a way to recognize some of the things that formed us and where we've had oftentimes a hard shell beat into us so we can't feel. That your honesty and willingness really opens a space for all of us. So thank you. Appreciation. Look forward
You're
to your
welcome.
book.
Yeah, and Jeanie, I'll add that witnessing you recount your experience and all too has certainly brought up a lot of resonating energies within me. And it's extremely difficult, and I applaud your courage and your honor in bringing this forward. And the difficulty, I couldn't even have read this 2 weeks ago, not without breaking down. I'd had a few quavers that came up, but I was able to breathe through them. And really a big piece of work came up a couple of weeks ago where that wound is located right in my gut with that, we talked about that stab wound. So the healing is progressive, and it's taken a lot of work to get to be able to do this. So I understand why it's taken so long for me to get this together. So I, again, want to acknowledge you, Jeanie, and all that you're doing. And I'm here with you.
Thank you.
Breathing.
That fits perfectly with this next chapter. Who was I? Who did I think I was? Who am I really? Do I matter? Aren't these the ultimate questions? And again, I present a warning that there are some graphic descriptions of some of the events, and some statements, although mentioned briefly in the previous chapter, are presented here in more detail. As a child, I thought I needed to matter to others. I wanted others' approval, and I wanted them to be proud of me. Who were these people? They were parents, teachers, siblings, bosses, peers, friends, and eventually boyfriends and husbands. Since I thought I was failing in this goal, I lowered my goal to being needed. I became a good, obedient servant, a partner, a spouse, employee, child, friend, you name it. I did what was asked. I intended to please. However, if this goal was not met when I was told in words or actions that my help was not desired or needed, I felt I was worthless. My life had no meaning. Who did I think I was? Nobody. During the year that we dated, my first husband, Kane, wooed me and drew me in. He was attentive and appeared to care about me. He was the first man to give me this kind of attention, and I thought, I can't let this one slip away. My desire to please resulted in my giving away my virginity at age 16 to Kane. Immediately after I had given this precious gift, one that a woman can give once and never give back, my new husband got up and went to work on his car. I lay sore and bleeding, thinking that was not romantic or fun or a turn on. What I did not realize was that I had bought into the lie that love must mean accepting abuse and abandonment. It meant that since I was his wife, my husband had the right to take what he did without taking my pleasure into consideration. Since I had never climaxed, I hadn't known what to expect or what was missing in this encounter. And yet from somewhere deep inside came the idea that I needed to protect myself in order to survive the situation in which I had found myself. Yes, Kane changed completely after we were married. While a voice inside screamed to get out of the relationship, I shut it down, believing that I was the one who should fix whatever I had done wrong. No one gets divorced before they even get started, I told myself. In fact, no one in my family had ever gotten divorced. Who did I think I was? Used goods. Since I was now used goods, who would want me? Back in the 1970s, a woman's virtue meant something. Without that virtue, guys tended to view a girl as loose and easy for the taking. Though that was the opposite of who I considered myself to be, this was who I now thought I was. Kane's frequent mental, emotional, and physical abuse of me continued. We moved into a small, filthy, roach-filled mobile home, and I spent that summer getting it clean and livable. Kane would often disappear for days without explanation. I did not have a car, so I rode the bus to and from school, often returning to an empty house. I would prepare dinner just in case he came home expecting to be fed and not wanting him to be angry. Thankful to be alone, I would go to sleep, knowing that I might be awakened by him later in the night to be raped and sodomized. On other days, I might come home to a house full of people smoking pot and drinking. Though I felt like a stranger in my own home, Kane would not allow me to excuse myself, insisting that I be sociable with his friends. At the time, I did not know that what Kane was doing to me was called rape. I did not feel I had a right to refuse his behavior because, after all, he was my husband. I did not know either that he could have made things easier by using a lubricant rather than just ramming into me and tearing me. I had so many infections and suffered so much damage that I lost count of them. Once I was so hurt that I went to the doctor, and he was amazed I was even walking. Since he had been my doctor since I was 11 years old, he added that I should not have married this man. Today, he surely would have reported the abuse. I returned home from the doctor that day to be raped again, even though I was swollen inside and out. I did not go to school the next day. If I attempted to refuse him, Kane would go mad, and the resulting mental and physical pain was always worse. I learned to fake pleasure so that he could quickly finish. Occasionally, Kane would be with another woman and come home and take me without bothering to shower. I recall getting crab lice from him and being so disgusted and embarrassed. I poured alcohol on my privates to kill the lice. Even the extreme pain of this was not as painful as Kane's degradation of me. During that first year of my marriage, erotic pleasure or arousal became linked with abuse. I no longer trusted my body's natural responses and became horrified if I felt sexual arousal. I felt I was a bad person. These links persist even to this day. Who did I think I was? An automaton, which, according to the dictionary, is one who acts in a routine manner without active intelligence. Despite my disturbing private life, I graduated in 1974 with honors in the top 10% of my class. We moved away from my family to Kane's family farm, which was an hour outside of town. And though it would never belong to me, I was expected to take care of it. Kane forbade me to wear makeup or to take the car except to the grocery store. One day, having given me only a $20 bill, I bought day-old bread, dented cans, and items that were out of date. I held my breath as the cashier rang me up, and then I exhaled when the total came to $19.99. At night, Kane would go out and stealthily raid other people's marijuana patches and bring his stash home to hang it in their basement to dry. I lived in fear of being found out, guilty by association. I even got a gun out of fear. Though I don't remember where I got it, I do remember that it held 9 bullets instead of the usual 6. One night, alone as usual, I heard a noise. I grabbed the gun and I started through the house, shaking. I realized that if I ran into someone, I might shoot before I even saw who it was. And this realization scared me so much, I gave the gun to my dad. It remains in his gun case to this day. Who did I think I was? I don't know, but I wasn't alive. In October of 1975, I realized I was pregnant. I began to hope that perhaps my life might have purpose after all. 4 months later, in February of 76, I woke up bleeding. Kane had been gone for days, and I didn't know where he was, nor did I have a car. Out of fear, I swallowed my pride and I called my parents, who drove an hour to get me and take me back to their house. Still bleeding, I went straight to the hospital and was given an emergency D&C. I was out of it for 2 days and was released to go home on the 4th day. But where would I go? I had not seen or heard from Kane the whole week. So I returned to my parents' home with a void in my heart that was once filled.
Breathing with you, sweetheart.
A void in my heart that was once filled with a little one who had begun to give me my life meaning. Kane called during the 2nd week after my D&C and asked if I wanted to come to a party that he was having at his parents' house. I recall saying I just lost their baby and hanging up and deciding I was going to file for divorce. The next week, he called and he begged me to come back, promising he would be different. I went back. And before my body had even had time to heal, he used me again. Nothing had changed. And I was at the bottom of the pit of desperation and despair. Who did I think I was? Stupid and a failure. I began to plan my escape. In Virginia, a divorce took a year to be finalized, but in Tennessee, it was only 60 days. Needing to get out as soon as possible, I refused to go back to the farm, and I convinced Kane to rent a house on the Tennessee side of town. I hung on until we had been in the state for the required length of time, whereupon I filed 2 papers, one a restraining order so that he would move away and stay away from me, and the other for a divorce based on grounds of cruel and inhuman treatment. When Kane was served, he was given 2 choices: sign the agreement to the divorce, making his way easier, or protest, whereupon the divorce would move into court, making the process long and unpleasant for him, because I would charge him with adultery, cruelty, abandonment, physical and mental abuse, theft, possession of drugs for use and distribution. He signed the agreement and left me alone. About 3 weeks after I filed, I received a phone call from a local physician stating that someone Kane had been with was found to have a sexually transmitted disease. Back then, when someone was diagnosed with an STD, it had to be reported to everyone the infected person had been with. I contacted Kane and asked him to come over. He came thinking I was going to take him back. When he got to the house, I told him about the call. And I remember saying that I did not care if his dick fell off. Excuse the bluntness here, but that is what I said. I added that if he had given me a disease, I would kill him. And I really meant it. I had a medical exam and lab work done, and everything appeared clear. Even so, I was given multiple rounds of penicillin shots as a precaution. Most who would hear my story would have compassion on me and not blame me for my thoughts and feelings toward my husband. But since I had been taught that if you commit murder in your heart, it's the same as if you have done it, I was guilty. Who did I think I was? A lost soul. It took 40 years for me to heal enough to acknowledge that if I ran into Kane on the street, I would no longer harbor those horrible, raw feelings. This does not mean, however, I pardon him for his abusive behavior. After filing for divorce, I got my first job as a waitress at the Holiday Inn. Within a month, a female coworker came up to me and told me her conscience was eating away at her, and because she really liked me, she needed to tell me that she had been having an affair with Kane off and on for 2 years. What was I to do with this information? Shortly after this, I went with a girlfriend to a band concert. While in the bathroom, I heard two women talking about Cain. One was sharing that she had been seeing him for months and that they were planning to marry and move to the farmhouse. I stayed in the stall until they left. The woman and Cain married within 5 months of our divorce being made final. All of this made me realize I had been blind to the truth of my situation and had so far failed to take responsibility for my own life. Who did I think I was? Visionless. Helen Keller once said, "The only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision." In an effort to put my life back together, I worked as a waitress, then a bookkeeper, then a hostess, then a front desk clerk, and finally assistant manager, all within the first year. I often started my days at 5 a.m. and ended after midnight. Working these many hours kept me so tired that I did not have time to think, remember, or even feel. Who did I think I was? Invisible. I dated a little in the next few years, but after the first few dates, I would find out that the man was either engaged or dating another girl. What was I doing in this position again? Could I not be someone's one and only? I met with a friend from childhood who went to my parents' church, and she believed in me. I began to teach children's Sunday school classes with her, and a new direction and a feeling of self-worth began to take root in my heart. Who did I think I was? Hopeful. In 1978, I was dating a man who became more and more obsessive, constantly questioning what I was doing. He would come to the Holiday Inn to check and see if I was really working, and he would stand in the lobby speaking to me in an aggressive manner in front of my employees and guests. Why did I accept this treatment? One night after a particularly long day at work, I drove home to my condo to find my roommate standing outside the door. She told me this man was inside and being belligerent. She was worried for my safety. I immediately left in my car, but where would I go? I had a friend, Ron, who had asked me out multiple times, though I had always said no. That night I drove to his apartment, told him what was happening, asked him if I could sleep on his couch. He let me in, did not ask questions, settled me on the couch, kissed the top of my head, and asked me what time I needed to get up. He woke me the next morning, I washed my face, and I left for work. He was a perfect gentleman, and this was the beginning of our being more than friends. We married in 1979. The belligerent guy stalked me for months. He would wait outside my condo to see who came and went. One night, he climbed a tree to the second floor and crawled across the roof to my sunroom, where he watched me. He came by my work, and he told me he had decorated his apartment exactly like mine so that if I ever came over again, I would feel at home. He could not take my no for an answer. When my brakes failed on my car, I suspected he had tampered with them. I realized he was crazy, and out of fear, I moved 10 times in 1 year. Who did I think I was? Afraid. Life finally began to turn around. I started to feel safer. Shortly after remarrying, Ron and I began trying to conceive. After 7 frustrating years, we went to an infertility specialist and discovered that scar tissue had built up inside of me from all the infections and abuse I had endured during my first marriage. I had cysts on my ovaries, a fibroid tumor in my uterus. Endometriosis had webbed my tubes to my intestines and clamped them closed. I underwent repair surgery, and once healed enough, I began taking fertility pills. Within a few months, I conceived. Life was exciting, and I was overjoyed once more. Then at 4.5 months, I began to bleed. I called the doctor, and he told me to lie down, put my feet up, and he would see me the next morning. I'd been here before. Why again? This time was bittersweet. I'd been carrying twins. I lost one, a girl.
Breathing. Breathing.
The other baby, a boy, appeared fine. Bed rest continued until my 8th month. This high-risk pregnancy consisted of preeclampsia, placenta previa, high blood pressure, and gestational diabetes, and I would have gone through it all again if it had been my lot. I clearly recall the first time I felt my baby move, and I sat in awe of the miracle of my blessing. On February 24th, 1988, the day my absolutely perfect son Ryan was delivered by C-section, my life changed. Who did I think I was? Complete in motherhood. This little boy became my reason for being on this planet. Time flew by quickly. We moved to a small town about 20 minutes away from my parents and began attending a different church, making new friends, and developing a community. When my son was in pre-kindergarten, I took a position at a big pharmaceutical company. I returned to college, but after a semester realized that a job, a small child, and the demands of running a household were too much for me. Despite never having been a quitter, and despite knowing myself as a superachiever, I dropped out of college. We remained active in church and life was good. But who did I think I was? Busy. Then in 1996, the effects of trauma on my body manifested again. I had to have a hysterectomy. I found I could not have any more children, and I was left with a physical scar that Ron could not accept. Our intimacy stopped. The outward scar wasn't the only blemish. My many emotional and mental scars began surfacing again. Our relationship began a downward spiral. We devolved into friends who lived under the same roof. Then financial issues came into play. Ron's business went into bankruptcy, and he felt undermined because I continued to be successful in my job at the pharmaceutical company. In turn, I began resenting holding down the fort by myself and getting nothing in return. No intimacy, no loving embrace, no help with the bills. The only plus we had going at that time was our involvement in church. Our members first met at our house in 1997 and then moved into an elementary school. We bought property and built a church in 1999. I served as the church clerk and secretary and taught both adults and children. We both sang in the choir. I now know that all this church involvement served as a distraction from looking within, a Band-Aid over a deep wound. If I'd had the healing tools I do now, perhaps things would have taken a different turn. Feeling like I was dying under the stress and seeing no alternative, I filed for divorce in June 2002 and suffered tremendous guilt for letting go of our more than 24 years together, for breaking up our family and letting down our son. Who did I think I was? Burdened. Ron and I remained friends, even going to all of Ryan's school functions together. Many people did not even know we were divorced. I was determined to keep it this way for our son. When Ron said he could not afford to pay child support, I did not contest this, as I had advanced in the pharmaceutical industry and was making a good living for our son and me. However, the church I invested in so wholeheartedly for 5 years blamed me for the divorce and shunned me. I started taking antidepressants and seeing a psychiatrist. I took medication to sleep and inhalers to breathe. Outwardly, however, I looked like I had it all together. Who did I think I was? A fraud. In December 2003, I met Dr. Michael Ryce, a naturopathic physician with a second doctorate in holistic philosophy. He explained to me that my mental and emotional problems, though related to legitimately difficult circumstances, did not have to dictate my mental state nor doom me to a troubled future. He taught me that since my mind had a choice as to how to respond to these triggers, I could choose differently from now on. Armed with this new encouraging knowledge and realizing that drugs only masked issues but did not address cause, I was gradually able to come off all medications and began the process of true healing. After corresponding and dating long distance, we married in 2005. and we remained together on this journey. Who did I think I was? At this point, changing. The details of my healing process can be found in the last 4 chapters of this book. The journey of self-discovery, release, and forgiveness was long and painful, but it was also liberating. Piece by piece, I worked through the trauma, the lies I had believed about myself, and the destructive patterns that had followed me through life. I began to reclaim my sense of being and to live from the truth of who I really was. I faced the raw memories of abuse, abandonment, betrayal, and I chose not to let them define me any longer. I confronted the shame and guilt that had ruled my choices and learned to see myself as whole and responsible rather than as a victim. I came to understand that healing required not just survival, but transformation, which meant going beyond what had been done to me and embracing the power within me to change. Using the tools of forgiveness, self-awareness, and deep spiritual work, I shifted from asking, "Who am I?" in despair to answering with clarity, "I am whole, I am worthy, I am love." The woman who once lived in fear, who once thought she was invisible, broken, and burdened, no longer exists in the same way. Scars remain, but they tell a different story now. Not of shame, but of triumphant survival, resilience, and redemption. Who am I? I am a woman who found her voice, reclaimed her life, and chose to live in truth. That's the end of
Wow.
that chapter.
Powerful, sweetheart. I'm breathing with you.
We
Is everyone else breathing?
don't really have time to go into the next chapter, so if there's some discussion, that would be great.
How's everybody doing? Anyone anything to share? Anything moving for you? Any questions? Go for it, Sally.
Thank you, Jeanie. I had no idea how much our paths had in common.
Well,
And I don't have a formed thought. I just wanted to chime in and say, not only breathing with you, but healing with you. There's so much power in speaking it and writing it and naming it, and I'm just in awe of you. Sorry, I'm all this. I didn't plan to speak, but I'm speaking as I find my way out of the wind here. It's so much to recognize that none of that story is really who you are. It happened, you endured, you survived, you returned to thriving, and now you are the voice of healing for all of us who have been through such hard experiences in life and trying, doing everything we can to return to love. And it is a journey. It is a process. It requires courage, and I guess this word fortitude keeps coming to me, strength and endurance. I just really am grateful to have reconnected with you, and I'm so honored to be the ears, among others, and the hearts joined in breath to salute your journey and all of ours.
yeah, it's, like ignoring it and pushing it down and not talking about it sure didn't make things go away.
No.
It just kept showing up, either physically or mentally, emotionally, or whatever. So this book was, I told Michael about it, and we process a lot around it. And this book is actually my journey of my healing, which required the telling of the story. But yes, it's not my identity. It's something I went through.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
And
I think I
processed a
would.
lot. And processed a lot is the understatement of the century.
Mm-hmm.
The work you've done, Jeanie, is just monumental.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't have done it without your support, and you have been so supportive in the book and the process of getting it out there. And there's been a couple of days that it was like I was so challenged. It was like I couldn't even think. And Michael said, "I'll take care of doing this," and he'd make phone calls or do whatever needed to be done, and let me put my focus elsewhere. So
One of the gifts of this book that I'm realizing I hadn't realized before, as I listened to you read this today, is that, and I look at the processing I've done to be with you through all that came up. I mean, it's been a major learning process for me as well. But I think the one of the gifts of the book is that men who are going to read this book and realizing, one of the things we shared a few weeks ago on the show was that Jeanie had broken her foot several months ago and ended up going to the hospital to get an x-ray. And the intake form, there's several questions that are asked of the patient. And one of them was, are you safe in your home? And Jeanie responded to, gee, that seems like a strange question. And the person who was doing the intake form said, yeah, 4 out of 10 women, 40% of women in this town answer no to that question. And I see this book being a major gift to the men who read it in being able to understand the abuse that women have been through, the abuse that they have been through with Terry. And anyone who wasn't on the opening part of the show, I suggest that, Jeanie will probably have this up later this evening on YouTube. I suggest going and listening to the first 10 minutes where Terry shared some of his writing on a book that he's writing about working through his trauma as a man, and to realize that we can each create a space for the other in relationship, that it's healing through relationship that happens, and the power of the gift that you're giving to men to have some insight, I think, is just monumental, because I can remember points where some of this stuff would come up and my stuff would come up and I'd be ready to go crazy. Had to sit and do worksheets and clean up my mind, and recognizing the process that we went through of becoming a cooperative couple with each other in allowing the space for things to come forward. So I think you've really, there's a whole other gift in this book that I hadn't realized before that I think is going to be really impactful. So thank you for writing it.
absolutely. And if you haven't yet, we've made an offer. The Amazon, it's actually today it changed it, and where it said not available, today Amazon shows the printed book as that it will be released April the 24th or something like that. What they do is Amazon wants to see if there's actual interest in the book. They do have the ebook up there. And so we've made an offer, and it's good through tomorrow, the 13th, that if you buy the ebook on Amazon and leave a 5-star review and comments with your review, then send me that you've done that, and I will deduct the $9.99 that you pay Amazon for the ebook off of the cost of a printed book. And it'll cost you $18, and I'll mail it to you signed. And so you'll have both the ebook and the printed book for My mind just, I can't add.
Be $28 total. So the same cost. The ebook becomes free if you're buying the physical book and include the shipping and handling. So
So if you haven't done
anybody
that
that
yet,
would do that
that'd
would be awesome.
Thank you.
And if you go to Jeannie's Facebook page or any of our common Facebook pages, why is this happening to me again? The Forgiveness Doctor, Kavor's manuscript. There's a post that includes links to the radio show. And the first 2 days of show are in there, and we'll have the third one in. If you'd share that post, that would be awesome. And invite others to support and put it out there. It would be deeply appreciated if you do that. And we're down to about 3 minutes. Anyone else have anything to share? Is everybody breathing? And once again, so many thanks to Susan Bingham. I watched a major shift happen for Jeanie in the work she was doing and writing when Susan stepped up to the plate and said, I'll become your beta reader. And the feedback he gave was phenomenal. And I think it's helped to make for a really powerful result. Go ahead, sweetie.
No, I was just agreeing. I was looking actually for the link. I'm going to put it in the Kindle link.
I did.
Because
It's in the notes.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, I put it in. There's a link. If you want to pass on how to get on the show, you can. The link is in there. Where do I attend the radio show? You can copy that link if you want to share it with somebody. If you want to, I don't know whether you can search on Amazon for the book yet.
Yes, you can.
Form. Does it show up in Kindle now?
No, that's
Okay.
what I just put the link to the Amazon Kindle.
Yeah, it's there. So you can copy and share that with others. If you think there's somebody that might be ready for this book, they can go ahead and buy the Kindle, which is $9.95, and then
$9.99
or $9.99. do that review and send it to Jeanie and get that $9.99 taken off the cost of the book, buying it directly from her. And once again, Terry, thank you for opening with reading your Beatings and Pudding story. It was so powerfully written, and I think gives us an insight into what all of us, I don't care what side of the fence you're on, male or female, we've got some deep healing to do, and joining you in that process, Terry. Anyone else thought? Anything to share? Celebration of Eugenie and the bravery and the work you've done and the work you will continue to do, the lives you touch. It's pretty powerful to watch.